Seattle. And we got invited to attend a summit for the common good. You were invited to come because of the work that we've done with, like, bridging divides. And there were 3 sets of duos who had bridged a divide to work with each other. So that's the framework. And on the drive up to the meet and greet, the first event, that's when we decided to dive in. The impeachment.
Yes.
And your takeaway on your side of the aisle from that?
I think my takeaway was the moment that you said, if the tables were turned and if this was Obama, would you say it was a big waste of time and money to do this? And I said, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe in that case, I would probably say, oh, that's not a big waste of time and money. Because that was my biggest issue with the impeachment, was I'm like, what a sham. They're not going to be able to impeach him. And this is, ridiculous waste of time and money.
Right. You had said there were so many other things we could put that money towards for the common good.
Yeah.
And so my question was like, well, what if it had been Obama?
Yeah. And if it had been, and there was a chance we could impeach him, I'd probably go, shoot, why not? Go for it. Try it. And if it doesn't work, well, we tried.
And I told you in that moment, I actually relaxed a bit. Because it was, for me, it was like, okay, yes, I just needed to hear that someone on the other side was willing to admit that, the rules would be different if the tables were turned.
Yeah.
Or, and it's what I know to be true. A lot of us know to be true that, like, on some level, our team politics sometimes take priority over...
Well, and sometimes a lot of times our team politics can blind us a little bit in our perspective and make it very difficult to see things from a different perspective. Or for me to put myself in your shoes and be like, what's she so upset about? Like you were saying, all my people are just so keyed up right now.
I know, I had this, I was so aware that you were coming into town right after the acquittal of Trump. And I was witnessing among my people on Facebook, like, it was like a reopening of the wound from the 2016 election. Just so much agitation, so much, like, long posts about, what it means to be a Donald Trump supporter, what kind of person you obviously are, not you in particular, but as a Donald Trump voter, what kind of person you must be if you still support him. And I was like, and in comes my friend Heidi at this heightened time. Maybe I won't schedule any social events Saturday night while she's here, because I kind of don't want to subject her to all of my traumatized liberal friends.
I really appreciate that.
My love for you. So that was the soup into which you were coming, but it's actually been kind of a low-key experience.
I think it helps too that I've already been here, and so I've already talked with your friends.
That's true.
So I kind of know what to expect. And I mean, honestly, if somebody had wanted to get all up in my face and whatever,
totally
then
handle it.
I don't think it would scare me quite as much now as maybe it would have in the past.
So we talked about impeachment. Then we were stuck in the car chatting about it was abortion.
Yeah, it definitely was
abortion. Right. That's what it was, because the whole thing of you wanted me to check out this website of abortion survivors telling their stories.
Right.
And then the whole issue, I'm pro-choice. And so what does that mean? What does that mean? Or, you know, in my own experience, what does that mean?
And my thing was that I said, yes, but there's so many other people that never got the chance to live, like never got to live out their purpose, and we never got to know them, and the world isn't richer because they are here with us. And tell me what you said.
Well, yeah, again, that dives into my own like belief around cosmology, and is like there is a big ocean of consciousness. Someone is born, a ladle is dipped into that ocean of consciousness, and there's this person. That person dies, it gets poured back into the ocean of consciousness. And so this whole discussion of like who are all the people that we missed out on because of abortion, it's just not even it's for me, I don't see it that way. I don't see us as missing out on consciousness. Like, because consciousness is here.
That person's consciousness then still exists.
It still exists. It's just not in that mass of cells.
Goes into another person?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, you could see that, or anybody could see that as a weird belief, but to me it's no weirder than believing a bush on fire is talking, or that somebody who's been dead in a tomb for 3 days is suddenly alive and has no dead tissue that's been rotting. You know, like, that's kind of weird to me too. So It's just like we have our distinct cosmological beliefs, and how does it inform how we vote? And how does it inform how much we want to try to get people to, how much we want to force people to act in a way that we think that they should act based on our own cosmological beliefs.
Yeah.
And then it gets really dicey.
I think what was really good for me in that conversation is that abortion just seems so completely unconscionable to me. And when you explain your worldview, this idea of this universal consciousness, and that it goes back into another person, and that consciousness never dies. Essentially, never. That if I think of it from that point of view, then it helps me understand you more.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I appreciate that.
Because otherwise I just go, what? That's, you know, but I respect you as a person, and I respect the fact that you have a different way that you see the world than I do.
Yeah. And,
I don't think it's true, but
it's fine. And, you know, and I see you post stuff on Facebook about the Holocaust of aborted babies, and I'm just like, and that's what Heidi believes, and I love Heidi, you know?
Thank you.
And it's so interesting, just because I'm in relationship with you, when somebody, because I have plenty of friends who really don't get, like,
why is it a big deal?
Yeah, why you believe what you believe, and, you know, and how can I be in relationship with somebody who voted for Trump and will probably vote for him again? And I find myself talking about it using your words, like, well, Heidi sees herself as a defender of those that can't defend themselves. And she identifies unborn babies as those people. And it's helpful to frame it in those words, because I think it helps my side see it a little differently. You know, and that's what I stand for, is like, how can we just shift our perspective even a little bit, so that we can slow it down and not just demonize each other. Oh my gosh, it's so hot. I gotta turn this off.
Okay. So in the car, another really poignant moment was we were talking about religion, and you said something to the effect of that, who knows what's really true? You know, who knows whether what you believe is true, what I believe is true? How can we ever know? And I said, well then, essentially, what is the risk for you then to believe in Jesus?
Right.
And
Right.
you said, well, because Jesus is not my dude. Jesus, he's just not my dude.
So poetic.
And I just realized in that moment that there, with these different worldviews, that sometimes there's just no logical convincing we can do on either side to make each other believe what we believe.
Right.
And at some point, I just have to respect the fact that you say Jesus is not my dude and still be your friend.
Right.
I love you anyway.
Right.
And you said, but you're welcome to pray for me. And I said, oh, but I will. It means I love you. That's right. That's right. I will always pray for you.
Did you love my analogy of like, for me to believe that Jesus is the Son of God is like me saying, hey, look, there's this elephant, this magical elephant. And if you just follow and believe in this elephant, you'll be saved. And you're like, yeah, I couldn't do that.
No. Yeah.
Like, same thing. Yeah. I mean, cool elephant. Really cool elephant. Could hang with him, but not my dude.
Not my dude.
Right.
Yeah.
So the summit today, a lot of amazing people in that room.
Yeah.
People with a lot of long resumes about how much good they do in the area.
One of the interesting things I noticed is that they called these two people that would be in dialogue, they called them pairings, and it almost reminded me of like at a restaurant when they say, what wine pairs with this dish? Well, I would put a Pinot Grigio with that chicken.
Right.
This is a pairing, so you have an Native American descendant, and then you have a Nebraskan farmer descendant, and the Nebraskan farmer 137 years ago, his ancestors,
his great-grandparents
kicked out her great-grandparents off of their land.
It was crazy.
And now these two are working together. 137 years later, they're working together in the Pike Place Market to try to create some kind of Native American housing project and selling some artistry and things like that.
Right.
But cool to see them working together now, and they were very honest about
That's what I loved, is that how these
cool.
pairings were talking about bumping up against the difficult places. And then the other pairing being Surar, the former sheriff of King County, and Andre, what was his name?
I don't remember his last name, but
I'll get back to you on that.
Who
Jackson
is a strong advocate for families,
who's
minority families who have, or not just minorities.
No, his relative, his stepbrother, was mowed down by police and was not rendered first aid while he was bleeding out. And
so families that have lost loved ones from police.
Right, and he actually was
enforcement.
Spearheaded the movement that ended up being the law I-940 that passed that here in Washington that
law enforcement has to give first aid to someone,
and has more accountability for law enforcement. Yeah. So and just the dialogue between the two of them.
Yeah.
And then what was it, the communities that they represent and how they had to navigate working with each other and navigate how did they talk to their communities about bridging this divide between two communities that have so much conflict and what that would bring up within their communities. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Dan Evans, former Republican governor of Washington State, and Michael Dukakis, Democratic governor of Massachusetts, and how they collaborated with each other and had a relationship. So it was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And the room was absolutely packed.
Mm-hmm.
with people that seem very determined to find ways to do good in our communities, to create beauty or help those that are disenfranchised or different things in the community.
Right. And then we carried on with conversations afterwards. What did we cover? We met with Monica Guzman, formerly of the Evergrey, and had some great conversations about occupying that uncomfortable space and what is it that keeps people from wanting to be uncomfortable when they bump up against conflict. And how do we regain that ability? How do we foster that ability in this day and age when especially the younger generations are so afraid of saying anything that might be wrong or messy or offend someone and can be called out on social media and come back and bite them and have the maelstrom of consequence. And what does that do to dialogue, to creativity, when there is no longer any tolerance for messiness, for tripping up, for
and Monica's big thing too is to maintain a spirit of curiosity.
Yes.
What does it look like to
stay curious?
To stay curious about each other.
Right. Even with people you disagree with.
Yeah.
You know, the opposite of cancel culture, which is, you know, shutting someone out if you deem them to be on the wrong side of any dialogue.
Yeah, I talked in that conversation how I feel like for me, as a conservative Christian, that I so fully expect someone to mock my beliefs that I typically don't share them, and that I'm only just recently getting to where I am willing to risk that, like in our relationship.
Yeah, I feel like I got, like, fast forwarding a little bit, I got just a little glimpse of that, and it made me like reel it back in because it was actually kind of fun and poignant and sweet and weird, but that's me on my side. I gave Heidi the go-ahead to give it her best shot to save me. Because, like, I know it means so much to you. And then
for the first minute, I just sat there and sobbed.
It was so sweet, but like the little piece I had into it, because I was feeling playful around it. And you had shared that you had friends praying back at home, that you would have opportunity to share the gospel with me, and I'm like, okay, give it. I told you about how when Zoe was getting really kind of focused on curse words and getting really uptight around them, how we would give Zoe these carte blanche experiences where she'd be in the car and we'd say, okay, Zoe, from now until the time we get home, use any curse word you want. Go.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same for you. Between now and when we get home, you go for it.
Preach it.
Give it your best shot. And I said, and you're like, well, I don't. And I was like, no, I'm going to have fun with it. And in that moment, it was like, I felt the recoil of like, and I perceived that it was like, oh, you think I'm going to shame you and make fun of you? And I was like, no, that's not what I mean. It's like...
And you looked over, my eyes are filled with tears, and you're like, oh, wait.
No, because that's crying. Like, the last thing is like, I don't want to make fun of anything that I know is so important to you. But to me, it was this thing of like, this is kind of joyful for me, because I love a good, like, conversation, and I'm actually really curious if you can change my mind.
And I think my tears in it for me were that... I just love you so much, and my heart, and this is like the deepest, dearest part of me, and to share that with you, I mean, of course it feels very vulnerable to share that part of my heart with you when I know that it's not your perspective, and I will never, I know that, you've said I will never persuade you, even though I'll keep trying, but but I think like anytime, you say share the deepest part of your soul, it's very emotional.
Right.
And it's just seldom that somebody says, give me your best shot. And I was like, oh, wow. How can I put it in a nutshell?
I know. And then, but what we're totally forgetting is like the conversation leading up to that point, in that interesting, like how you had shared with me, it's like you had really been approaching it of like just loving me and being a loving person. It was the best way you knew how to like model your faith with me. And then as you were speaking about both, but the maybe why don't you say it? I don't want to like.
There's always an expectation in the evangelistic community that we'll share our faith with others, and that, and I have that expectation on myself because my faith is that I believe something so deeply, and that I would want everybody to come to know Jesus, because I find such joy in my own faith that I would want everybody to experience that. So there's that expectation for myself, but then I also definitely feel that expectation from my community as well, that I make sure that I don't just speak love, but that I also speak the truth, and that means actually saying the gospel to you.
Right. And we had an interesting moment because you had started with, I am just speaking love with you, and then this awareness of like, but I'm also supposed to speak love and truth, and you started going on about truth. And I shared later that it was like my energy shut down, and I was like, okay, I feel like I'm out of relationship with you, because, and then you shared, well, that makes me sad, because I really was trying, like I was sharing an edgy part of myself, and I was like, no, now I'm livening up, because that's what I'm interested in, being in relationship with you, is like, where are the vulnerable parts, but when you had gone into this tangent about truth, speaking truth, and the truth of the gospel, I said, that's where you lost me, because we don't have a fundamental agreement about that being truth. And so it's then layered with so much like, what are the ground rules around semantics? What do you consider truth? What do I consider truth? You're talking about like Jesus, the gospel of Jesus being truth. I'm like, that's the farthest thing from truth that I could imagine. I mean, as far as like it being true that you only go to heaven if there's a heaven by following Jesus, like that is just not within my framework.
So then when I say the word truth, then we don't have shared meaning around that term.
Right.
Because you see it different than I do.
Right. And so then I check out, because we're not even speaking the same language. Right. And so then what felt palpably different, like, was when I said, like, when I got myself to this place of, oh, this really means something to my friend Heidi, and I want her to be fully here, and this will be interesting. Okay, go. And you started speaking from your heart, which was different than the mandate.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just like there's so many layers of like, oh, okay, understanding. And then one last, like, the whole thing around, I don't even know how, because you started talking about like literally believing the Bible literally, and then I went down this thing of like, you literally believe that the entire human race was started by one man and one woman? Yes, you do. Okay, and then who did their sons sleep with? Because they slept with their wives. Well, obviously it was their sisters. Okay, so really, and I started like doing my
but you have a PhD in communication.
Oh yeah, no.
How can you be so dumb?
Well, okay, it did come to that, but I didn't say it that way. I said, really, you're a PhD educated woman. You actually believe that the entire human race was created this way, really? And so we get there, and then when I took in that she really did, I said, okay, I am sitting here with a judgment. No, you said, why does it matter? Why does it matter?
Why do you care if I believe in Adam and Eve or not?
And it came down to, it's like, it's important to me that you're smart, and I think this is a dumb belief. I think you're dumb for believing this. And just like the words coming out and even recounting it. Like, it's yucky. It's yucky because, you know what, these are the things we think inside, but we never say.
Yeah.
And to actually say it, to like daylight this shadowy place that I think but don't say, and say it to someone that I really care about and want to be in relationship with, that's when I have to really experience how discordant, how out of like alignment that belief is with the way I want to be. Right? And so then, because if I sit with these thoughts unexamined, then I have to make an internal choice, which is judge my friend, pull away because she's not everything I think she should be, or set it aside and don't look at it, don't go there because it's too uncomfortable to have to look at this dissonance, you know. And the best thing I can do is come back to, I don't know. I don't know. And I feel like that's kind to myself in the friendship. I feel like it's kind, because the truth is none of us actually does know.
Well, none of us were there.
None of us were there.
The creation
and
of humans.
I mean, there's plenty of science that I tend to believe more than anything else, but, you know, don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
So.
And we talked about how it fundamentally, for me, goes back to that the Bible is my holy book. I believe it's the Word of God. And so it says that Adam and Eve were the first people and that God created them. And that's what I believe.
That is an interesting story in my mind. And I'm glad it brings you joy. Yeah. So, anything else we didn't cover?
Let's see. Well, I've just had a sweet time with you and your family tonight.
Yeah.
And I think getting to just spend time together in your home and talk with your husband and hang out with your daughter. It's just sweet and fun. And I feel, you know, when your husband Jeff said that he was glad I was there at dinner, that makes me happy because I know you don't have very many born-again Christians that sit around your table at dinner.
Like none.
And so for him to...
My Jewish husband.
Right. For him to enjoy my presence, it just shows me that, you know, we're able to have a friendship and a relationship and we're different. We believe differently. But we love each other.
That is absolutely true.
And I love your family.
Thank you. I love yours. I just also want to say one more thing, like how exhausted I am at working this hard.
It takes work, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, it's so worth it, but it's like a level of exhaustion I haven't felt since when I came to Nashville. And it's like, wow, no wonder people don't want to do this. Because it takes work.
Oh,
it really does.
I mean, it takes far less energy to just keep people around you
that you believe
that you already all think the same and believe the same. So when you say something, they're not going to counter you. They'll be like, well, yeah, of course.
And I don't have to reevaluate everything I'm saying with like, well, I wonder how this lands. Oh, huh. You know, I don't have the party line here, so.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
It's good though.
It's very good.
And I feel like it is the best way that we grow. I feel like I've grown. My word for the year is bold. I've told you that. And I feel like coming here right after the impeachment. It's bold. And for me to be here in your community and just be in your world with you, it requires a level of courage for me that I think is good.
Great. The word for my word for the year is flow, capital
Flow.
F, and that means following the yes. And this is a big yes for me. Doing this
Following
work.
the yes.
Yeah. Like, where is the yes energy? Yeah.
I see
mean,
the
the high
yes
yes.
in your living room. You have a big yes.
Capital yes. Not
Yeah.
small Y yes, where it's like, have another cookie? Yes. No, I'm talking about, like, does this make my energy sing? Yes. So.
But it does. Love you.
Love you.